In the following interview, I sit down with Chris Walker, the CEO of Encoded. Many of you probably know Chris from being the performance marketing guru. He was all over LinkedIn and he was the founder of Refine Labs. But today he's walking a very different path. And in this conversation, we talk through Chris's journey of self-transformation from living what he calls a very average life, following the crowd, to building a highly successful agency where he ticked all of the boxes for what it means to be a successful entrepreneur. But he was spending 12 to 14 hours a day on Zoom calls. He didn't feel like he had any freedom. Anxiety levels were sky high. And if he wasn't working or working out, he felt this immense guilt. And all of that sounds pretty familiar to me. But he actually shares the system that he built for himself to change his frequency, essentially, and start living a life of clarity and purpose. And now his mission is to help others do the same. So if you want to swap sort of this constant hustle culture, stress, burnout for freedom, clarity, and purpose, this episode is for you. Before we get to the conversation, this episode is brought to you by our partners at Dream Fuel. I hope you've been able to get a taste of kind of what they're all about through our live wellness series. It's been really cool hanging out with many of you and just breathing together, doing some visualizations together. We do have one final session coming up on December 17th. You can sign up in the show notes. And since the reception has just been so incredible from the Wake Up Call audience, Dream Fuel is doing something special for the month of January. This is only for Wake Up Call listeners. They are offering a free guided visualization and breathwork session for your entire team. This could be organization-wide if you want, just your sales team, marketing team. Usually they charge $2,500 for one of these sessions. And they work with companies like Owner, Workday, Smartsheet to help sharpen focus, build confidence, and achieve, even the loftiest goals. It's a no-brainer to build this into your company kickoff or your RKO. I will say they don't have hundreds of coaches. They're more of like a Navy SEAL team of coaches that are kind of the best of the best. So they won't be able to accommodate everyone. So it will be done on a first come, first served basis. You can go to dreamfuel.com, book a session, and just make sure you tick Wake Up Call, and they'll get everything set up that's fully customized to your company's revenue targets, goals for next year. And the feedback is always next level for these team sessions. So I hope you do take them up on it. Now, on to my conversation with Chris. Chris Walker, what's up, man?
Scott, good to see you, man. Happy to run this back with you. For those of you that don't know, we did a V1 of this podcast in June, live in Bali together. But the reporting got missed. And I just believe that everything works out exactly how it's supposed to, and I'm pumped to run it back with you, man. Good to see you.
Likewise, brother. Good to see you too. Yeah. The quick backstory, we happened to be in Bali together. It was such a cool coincidence. We were both on this very interesting kind of time in our lives, and there was a lot of similarities there. And we got together, did record one live. I will say it was a really awesome podcast. And then I'll fall on the sword. Basically what happened was this podcast studio sent me the file, or what I thought was the file. And and then 2 weeks later, I went to be like, okay, now I'm ready to publish this, whatever. And the file was an expiring link. I've never even heard of this stuff, and they had deleted it from everywhere. It was, anyway, it all happens for a reason. And now I'm in Rishikesh, India, and this almost didn't happen again. Funny story before we get into it. I was at an Airbnb, and just out of nowhere, this massive Indian wedding popped up right behind my Airbnb, and it was kind of the loudest thing in existence. So I had to do a quick maneuver and get a hotel. And now I'm sitting in the hotel's office, funnily enough, recording this because it's the only place with decent Wi-Fi. But that's all to say. There's a lot riding on this conversation we're about to have,
You're
man.
pulling out a lot of stops to make this happen.
Yeah. Uh, cool, man. Well, I love to just dive right into it. I think many folks listening to this will likely have heard the name Chris Walker. You know, you built this really incredible brand on LinkedIn, and I think for many years you were sort of known as the marketing guru guy, the performance marketer. You did such a great job at building Refine Labs, and you were this kind of figurehead that was everywhere. Um, and now you're on a new path and a new journey, and you've just launched a new company that, you know, from the conversations we had, is a lot more rooted in purpose. Feels like this is just, when you talk about it, like your eyes light up. It's like your dharma work, as they call it. And I want to get to that, but you know, this is called Wake Up Call, and you don't just walk into your dharma or your life's work. Usually there is a journey that happens. And your journey was an incredibly impressive one, but I'm sure a bit of a taxing one at times too. I guess my first question is transporting you back to, say, 4 years ago. What did a day in the life of Chris Walker look like? And then what does a day in the life of Chris Walker look like now?
Yeah, if you don't mind, maybe we do 3 segments. I think it'll be helpful for the audience. So we do like 10 years ago, then 4 years ago, then now. Um, so 10 years ago, 2015, I'm living an average life, making average money, feeling probably like average to below average in my life. I'm following the playbook and the rules that society writes for you. Go to college, get a job, try to climb, work hard every 2 years. Maybe you get a little pay increase, maybe you get a little promotion, climb the corporate ladder, do all the stuff that people do, like go out to the bars and socialize and basically live an average life. Um, and so that was a snapshot in 2015. Around that time, I I didn't intentionally do this, but I started to question all of these rules. I'm following all the playbook, and this isn't working for me. This isn't the way that I thought it was going to go. And so I started to subconsciously question some of these things, like why do we drink alcohol? Like, why does everyone associate alcohol with celebrating and high class, and you drink wine at dinner, and you at a company event that you get drunk with your coworkers? Like, why do we, and then you feel like shit the next day, you feel disconnected from yourself. Like, why do we do this? Why do we go into an office every day? Like, why I have all my best ideas and I do my best work outside of an office. So why am I going to the office every day? Why do we work 9 to 5 every Monday through Friday? Like, some of my best work happens on a Saturday morning. Like, if I want to work on Saturday, then why don't I do that? And if I am not feeling inspired to work on Tuesday at 11 a.m., then why am I forced to sit at my desk? Why do we wear a suit to an interview? This is about who I am and what I know, not about how dressed up I am. And so I started to, like, for instance, in interviews, I would intentionally wear jeans and a t-shirt. And if people didn't want to hire me because I didn't shave my face and I didn't wear a suit to an interview, then good. I didn't want to work for them anyway. I stopped going to an office, even though the company policy was like, go to the office Monday through Friday. I started just working from home a couple days a week and putting out great work. And like, if that company didn't want to match the way that I chose to work, then I would find somewhere else to work. So I started to question some of these rules, which turned out really great for me. And then in 2019, I got fired from a tech startup job. Technically, I resigned, but basically I was fired, and stumbled into starting my company, which was just a freelance consulting firm at the beginning, with me charging $100 an hour. and stumbled into it. And I was like, I had $3,000 in my bank account. I had no following on social media. I had a lot of self-doubt and limiting beliefs and things about whether someone even cared or whether I was talented enough. But I gave it 3 months to see if it would work. And after 3 months, I was making twice as much as I was making in a job, working 15 hours a week or something like that with 3 or 4 clients. And so fast forward a little bit, and then I'm like deep in this, the company scaled at the peak. We were doing 21 million ARR. And I'm following again this playbook: work hard, make a lot of money, gather external achievements, buy cool stuff. And I'm on Zooms for like 14 hours a day, 6 days a week. I'm feeling anxiety. I'm having like massive anxiety multiple times a week. I'm feeling like stressed and burnt out. I take a vacation once a quarter to basically try to like recharge my battery, come back to 1,000 emails and a bunch of meetings and people needing me and things like that. And basically I had created a situation where I maximized my financial gain at the expense of every other area of my life. And if I wasn't working at my laptop, or I wasn't working out, then I would feel guilty for not doing enough. And that was my life at the peak of my company. And that was the point where I started to rethink. I started to rethink everything. I'm like, I followed exactly what I was supposed to do to be a quote unquote successful entrepreneur. And this doesn't feel like success to me. And that was around 2022, mid 2023 timeframe. And present day, I work when I want. I do whatever else I want to do in the other time. I do not allow meetings on my calendar. I almost take 0 meetings. I operate in the present moment. If I need to have a meeting with someone, they can call me on my cell phone, or I will call them. And if we connect, amazing. If not, oh well. I spend a lot of time filtering the people that I spend time with. I'm highly aware that other people's energy, their beliefs, their worldviews are contagious. And I'm very conscious of the people that I spend time with. I travel to wherever I want to go when I want to go. And by the way, this is not bragging. I'm just talking about how it works for me now. And I work on things that I'm passionate about, that make an impact for other people, that energize me to do it. And it's way more about how I feel on a day-to-day basis about what I'm doing and how I spend my time and who I'm with than how much money I make.
Thanks for breaking that down. I feel like it's the journey many of us go on, and both of those chapters I can relate with. Early on in my career, I was like bartending, super lost, had no idea what I was going to do, and you just get sick of average at one point. And then the other one is just still kind of makes me sick when you seemingly have it all, or you're so wealthy in one thing, and that is, the outside version of success. Everyone's congratulating you, killing it, you're killing it.
Mhm.
You have the financial means to do really cool things, but you have no time to do them. You have no time, you have no energy. And for me anyway, like my soul was gone. So I didn't want to do anything other than, like you mentioned, Jim, like my productive habits, because that's what basically kept the train going, or my very destructive habits, which ended up coming out, which is, escapism. You can basically throw yourself in escapism and healthy habits, or, negative habits, but it depends on your relationship with them. And even for me, the way I treated my healthy habits, like even meditation and yoga and some of these good things, was so transactional that it actually wasn't healthy. I was only
Mhm.
doing them for the outcome that they gave me, which was I can now go and produce more, which is not a good place to be. So I hear your story, and I'm thinking through as like a listener. did you have to go on the journey you did to get to where you are now? Or could young Chris, 2015, if you could sit down with him now, could you teach him this stuff? Or do you think there's part of it is you have to experience this for yourself? You have to go on this journey. Yeah.
Absolutely not.
Mm,
You do not need to suffer and hit rock bottom or whatever that stereotypical thing is to get to this place.
mm,
What happened was that I absorbed subconsciously the beliefs of others around what success means, what productivity means, what I should do, what I should strive for. Um, and by absorbing those, then it shows up in your behaviors and things like that. So, what I've started to do when I produce my own podcast and I share this stuff, and I have created a company called Encoded around it, is to help people be able to get a path to not have to have this happen, to be able
mm,
to restructure their beliefs, who they are, what their North Star is, what success means to them in advance of that happening. Um, and I am certain that people do not need to go through that type of journey in order to get to where I've landed or where others have landed.
mhm. Yeah. It's funny, we're both sort of focused on the same mission. Just like it's called Wake Up Call. And the idea is, can you wake people up before their wake up call? Because I also know for a fact I could have woke up without a lot of the pain
Me too.
that happened. I'm an intelligent enough person. I do learn lessons, and I listen, and it didn't have to get that bad. And one of the things why I'm called to this and to hear stories like yours and share stories like yours and others is part of it for me was just um is I bought into all these other people that I was around that were successful, that every time I was sitting with an executive dinner, and I used to host them all the time, everyone's life was great. Everything was always up and to the right, and family's good, and this is good, and this is good. And so I was like, oh, there's something must just be wrong with. Like, I guess I just keep going, and then one day I'll make enough, or I'll be as successful enough that I'll be happy like all these other people. And then, with a shred of truth or vulnerability, which I shared when I stepped down for the fund, all of those people reached out to me and said, "Oh man, I'm on my third divorce, or I'm having these health problems I can't talk about, or I'm struggling with addiction. I just got out of all this stuff that, like, oh wow, who is who in this world that I aspire to be like is happy?" And there wasn't a lot of examples that I could point to. And like, okay, well, we need to showcase that so that people don't aspire that and sacrifice everything else in their life for um, a fictitious way that doesn't exist. you know,
Mhm.
um, yeah, it's bizarre. Okay, tell me a little bit about. Actually, I want to stay there for a sec
Yeah.
because I think we'll um, get this pushback, and I want to address it. People need to generate a certain amount of wealth. First it starts for survival, um, and I think you could listen to this conversation and be like, okay, well, it's easy for Chris and Scott to espouse this different way of living, to get in touch and get really like connected and listen to their frequency and all this stuff because they are financially secure. Um, what would you say to those people?
Yep. People say it to me every day. Easy for you to say, bro, you're rich.
Hmm.
Easy for you to talk about uh, doing what you love and following your time. But look at me. I live paycheck to paycheck. I need this job. I have two kids. Like doing something that I love would be risky, blah, 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 blah. And I quickly remind people that in 2019, I had $3,000 in my bank account. I was $65,000 in debt. When I started my company, I had to sell my car because I couldn't afford the insurance and the parking, and I took the subway if I needed to go somewhere. And the the so I know exactly what that feels like. And basically every human that doesn't grow up in a rich family or a trust fund knows exactly what it feels like to be at that level of financials. And
Mm-hmm.
people think I'll get rich and then I will focus on these things. And it's actually the opposite. You focus on these things, you challenge the societal conditioning, you challenge the beliefs that you hold about yourself and how the world works. And as you challenge them, your behavior changes and your results improve. So people have it in the reverse. I started
Mm-hmm.
my company because I challenged the way that B2B marketing worked. I challenged that in 2019, pre-COVID, that you didn't need an office to build a company, that you could do it remotely. That was a foreign concept to many people in 2019. I challenged the idea that working for myself would actually be safer than a job when most people think that having a job is safe. I believe that having a job caps you out. It keeps you controlled. It keeps you dependent on somebody else. So
Mm-hmm.
I challenged a lot of. I stopped drinking alcohol for the most part in 2019, and completely stopped in 2023, and challenged all of these things about what people think is normal. And through that process, I was able to make more money, and my life improved in many ways. And the thing is that every human, their circumstances in their life may be different, but from a personal development and personal growth standpoint, everyone goes through the exact same process. We have documented this at Encoded as the six frequency tiers. And tier one is known as default programming, that you live by all the programs that you receive through family, media, work, social media, friends, all these different things about how the world works. And it doesn't need to be that way. You have just unconsciously agreed that that's the way it'll be for you. And the first step that people will take as they grow will be to challenge those beliefs. That is the first step. And through that level of challenging, you operate in a different way, you make different decisions, and your life improves. And so that's how I generally respond to people that say that, because it's not the result, it is the cause.
Mm-hmm.
That doing this stuff is actually the cause of your life improving. It's not the reverse.
Totally. I like the way you put that. Yeah. I mean, I'm a similar story. I left my house at 18, got politely asked to leave. I won't say kicked out because my parents are great, but got politely asked to leave. And I remember being 24, getting into tech, and just by luck, and I'm a college dropout, started a company that kind of worked, kind of didn't work, and sleeping on a friend's couch. And similar to you, it was like there was a rebel in me. There was challenging things. So I think you continue to challenge things again and again and again, you start getting closer to truth. Um, and I would love to continue down the thread, though. What comes after default programming? These sort of six frequency layers.
Let's keep rolling. Tier two is called breaking the illusion. It is the process of deprogramming and thinking for yourself. So, redefining, instead of what most people are programmed, is that success equals external milestones, achievements, money, funding, buying, collecting stuff, buying a nice house, getting married, to redefine what success actually means to you instead of accepting the definition that you've been given, right? I now define success as waking up and living, loving my life every single day, and feeling joy and feeling amazing and spending time that I want to spend with and working on things that energize me and making an impact for others. You can accept whatever definition you want, but how I've redefined success for myself, to question. So I call them invisible contracts. There are hundreds, potentially thousands of invisible contracts that we unknowingly agree to, that we're conditioned about how the world works. And then we subconsciously accept that definition. And while we accept it, it then drives our entire life. It drives what we do, how we make decisions, how we feel, how we react to certain situations, everything. And so tier two is the process of deconditioning and thinking for yourself around what all these things mean. And through that process, you create dramatic improvements in your life and the results that you get in your life.
Mhm. Mhm. It's wild, man. And it's so cool that you're building Encoded and you're bringing this to the modern world, because when I hear you talk about a lot of the things that you're thinking about, like I've kind of almost gone like backwards in my journey, like reading a lot about like Buddhism and reading the Bhagavad Gita and spending a few weeks in an ashram with people that are sharing wisdom from like 5,000 years ago. And it's pretty damn similar to like what you're talking about, which is really cool and interesting, particularly because we did a really bad job at learning from any sort of Eastern traditions that are, again, thousands and thousands of years old in the West. We forgot about that. And I kind of talked about it recently, how we built an entire society that was only focused on doing,
Mhm.
versus, in the East, it is about being. Doing is a part of life, but it is not life.
Mhm.
Being is much more life. Like, how do you feel when you're alone? And they'll teach you how to sit, how to breathe, like all these like elementary things that we're actually never taught about in the West. All it is you go to school and we'll teach you how to do stuff. And so in your head, one of your default programming is human beings are here to just do.
And
And
if I don't do stuff, then I'm not valuable.
exactly, exactly. And so you never can sit back and be like, oh, but what if actually by being, I can actually affect how I do things, And I think that is something that is missed. And I think that tees up really nicely for, I know you work a little bit differently, and you can tell me if I'm wrong, but it kind of feels like you've set up your life a little bit to have periods of being and then periods of doing. And I imagine the being makes the doing a lot more effective. I hope that wasn't too
100%.
abstract, but yeah.
So let's define what being is, right? Um, my, I believe that being is what we define at Encoded as frequency, which is the combination of your identity, your worldviews and your beliefs about how the world works, your emotional state, and your intentions. What we call the inner architecture that drives everything that you do and the energy behind everything that you do. Unlike your mood or whether you're happy, you're sad, or your personality, your frequency does not change often, and it does not change without direct intention. You do not change your worldview about how the world works without intentional training. You do not change how you view who you are and what you're capable of without intentional training. So most people find that their personality or who they are is static, that because of what happened in the past and because of the evidence that they have about who they are, and because they took a personality test that told them that they like to control things and micromanage stuff, and that's who they are. And that's 100% not true. Some people tell me, oh, I'm just an impatient person. I just get anxiety sometimes. This is just who I am. And it's like, no, that is not who you are. that is a result of your beliefs around who you are and your beliefs around how the world works, which then drives that emotional state and those behaviors. And so when I'm focused on being, it is on aligning and having coherence across those four elements, so that when I do things, I am doing them with clear, pure intentions. I'm doing them from a proper emotional state, and I get a much greater impact and benefit through that. And over time, with training, you can be in that state almost perpetually. You can live in that state. And so that is one element of it. And I have entirely reprogrammed and decided for myself around what productivity means and what success means. Those two things for entrepreneurs and executives are huge. And because I don't believe that sitting at my laptop and how many hours that I work, I don't believe that is productivity anymore. It makes it a lot easier to go to the beach on a Tuesday afternoon and think about the vision for my company and to empower others to thrive and grow instead of me having to do everything like I used to. And
Mm-hmm.
so that's when I'm sure we'll get into it more. And I also think that covering, at least at a surface level, the rest of the tiers would be really useful, because like you were resonating with that, everybody resonates with it because it is a consistent path of human development and growth. And so that's how I focus on being. And then at Encoded, we've created the idea of frequency training, that we can intentionally train our being and therefore dramatically impact the behaviors that we take and the results that we get in our life through it.
Hmm. Hmm. So cool. So again, I'm gonna draw a parallel because it's just in my world right now, and I learned a lot about the Himalayan tradition of yoga. So I spent many days, about 6 days in silence, about 20 days at this ashram, and basically what you were describing, how they would put it was, you have like a lower mind, right? And that is the mindless chatter that is like these like impulses, and most people are staying in their lower mind like almost all the time, sometimes indefinitely. And then you're going to have an ego, and then you have like this higher self. And I think the doing that you described there is like living in your higher self, and that is where intuition comes from. Some of the more woo woo things where you're just walking and you feel like you get some sort of download from like somewhere. You're like, was that me? Like that's the answer to my problem. And like, it takes a lot of training. For me, it took about 4 days of silence. But if you get silent for 4 days and get rid of that lower mind activity, man, my brain was working. Talk about like a high frequency. I have not had that. I also had no cell phone, which I think was helpful, but I don't think my brain had been operating on that level for like a decade. It was, everything was easy. I could sit with one thought for like 3 hours and just think it through to a conclusion. And that's not normal. Think of your own way your brain operates right now, or how mine used to when I was in VC land and trying to think about a million different things at once. That one pointedness of mind to really think about a deep, bigger problem and see it through. I think that is like the higher self. And I think you described it really well. And again, they were teaching this from 68 generations of transferring this knowledge. So you're on to something big. And I think my question was, because they teach there's something beyond that, and living in your higher self. If you can do that, you're going to have a great life. But they talk about something beyond that, the Atman, the soul, the divine within, God. Some of those words are triggering for people. Um, what do you what are your personal views on going behind that frequency layer?
So I believe that everyone is welcome to believe and choose whatever they want. And I think that is amazing that every single human has the freedom and the choice to believe whatever they want to believe about who they are and how the world works. I think that is important, and I think that is amazing. I personally like to keep this incredibly grounded and incredibly accessible for people. And I personally don't think that that is necessary in order to create change and transformation in your life. Now, one of the things that you mentioned was about the lower mind and about quieting or basically escaping the lower mind through activities like meditation or silence or going on a retreat or taking away your cell phone for a little while. How about just eliminating it from your life? How about just not having it be there? What is the lower mind? Like, people talk about having like head trash. They have like the thing that happens where they just like people doubting yourself or questioning yourself and not trusting it or things like that. That How about just eliminating it instead of treating the symptoms? Why don't we just rewrite the source code that eliminates all that stuff from happening completely? That is what frequency training does. And so many traditional approaches treat symptoms, not rewriting the code that creates the symptoms in the first place. So that's really the difference about what we're working on here. Now,
Mhm.
when there's a very practical scientific explanation for why, when you are out of that state where you're not in fight or flight mode, when your brain isn't operating totally in beta waves, when your nervous system is dysregulated, why you have amazing ideas. When your limbic system is stabilized, when your nervous system is calm, when your brain is operating primarily in alpha, theta, and delta waves instead of beta waves, you have incredible higher levels of clarity. And when you have higher levels of clarity, you have better ideas because you're not searching in survival mode. And so that is the process, right? That's why meditation can sometimes lead you to better ideas. That's why being in that state can lead you to a level of awareness. And what we're doing with frequency training is bridging the gap between awareness and embodiment. The idea between knowing something that you need to do something, or having an awareness that something is off, to actually making that a part of who you are and actually integrating that so you live in that state on an ongoing basis. And so I know what head trash feels like. I know, like, I've had it happen many times. I know what self-doubt feels like. I know what anxiety feels like. I know what feeling guilty for not working feels like. I know what all these things feel like. And what I'm communicating is that instead of just treating the symptoms, like going to therapy or going on a meditation retreat for a couple days, that you can actually just eliminate those from your life. That is
Mhm.
possible, that anyone can do it, and there are clear training routines in order to have that happen.
Mhm. Mhm. Let's let's go there because um I think you're just like radiating like a lot of like your higher self is coming out. And I think sometimes people are like, ah, Chris just has it figured out. And you talk about, time periods where you don't have it figured out. I think it's important to highlight this self-doubt, this head trash, those periods in your life. Walk me through some of the darker periods in your life.
Um, I would I would get an email, and then my whole day would be thrown off because I would have some like level of underlying anxiety. Sometimes not like anxiety attacks, but I would feel anxious for the whole day and not understand why. I would want to post something on social media and then think in my head, nobody cares what I have to say. There's so many people out there that are smarter than me. I would uh, know that I should stop going to the bars on Friday night, but then my friends would invite me and I would keep going. I would know that I need to let go of this employee because they're not aligned with the vision of the company and they're not performing. And I would wait 3 or 6 months for them to keep underperforming before I actually did something. I would know that I need to change something in my life, leave a relationship, spend less time with this person, do something and not do it. Right? Like though that is self-doubt. That is having an intuition, having a knowing of what's right for you and not following it. And so I know what all of those different things feel like. And the major breakthrough, and it's nice because it connects from the breaking point from tier 2 to tier 3, is this element of metacognition, about observing your thoughts and the recognition, first intellectually and then actually seeing it occur in your life, that your thoughts about neutral circumstances are why you feel a certain way. I didn't feel anxiety because I got the email. I felt anxiety because when I got the email, I thought I'm not doing enough for clients. They're going to leave. Then I'm going to have to fire people and everything's going wrong. My subjective thinking about a neutral circumstance is why I felt anxiety. And then based
Mm.
on that level of anxiety and those fear and scarcity based thoughts, I would take certain actions, like send a long email over explaining how valuable we are to the client, and reinforce the belief that I'm not doing enough for clients and that there's not enough. And once you can recognize this and you can interrupt these patterns and start to see, oh, I have a conscious choice about how I can think about any circumstance. And right now, my default program is running for survival and scarcity, and I can think empowering thoughts when the client sends me an email. I can truly believe there's plenty of clients. We provide incredible service to people. They probably just need an answer to this question. I can feel calm, confident, answer the email in a totally different way and go on with my day. And I can, about anything. If it's raining and I wanted to go to the beach and it rains, like maybe 10 years ago, I'd be like, oh my God, everything's going wrong. What the heck? Now I love the rain. I appreciate it. It's sending me in the right direction. Maybe I'm supposed to be inside to record a great podcast with you. It's raining today in Austin, Texas. And so, and through that level of metacognition, which is called cognitive mastery, leads to emotional ownership. And then you can own your emotions and that your beliefs and thoughts are actually creating the emotions. They don't happen for no reason. And when you get to that level, you can stop coping. You can stop using methods like therapy or breathing to cope with anxiety. And you can realize that you can change it. You can eliminate, through intentional practice and training, you can eliminate those negative emotions from your life. And so that is a big step between mastering that is a big step between tier 2 and tier 3. Additionally, in tier 2, inevitably you spend a lot of time seeking out coaches, mentors, books, podcasts to try to figure out, something's off, but you don't know what it is. And you're looking outside of you to try to figure out the answer. So those are some common signs in the tier 2 phase.
Mhm, mhm. Let's keep going. So you've had, and let me know if these are right. So you've got the default programming, then you go to breaking the illusion, then metacognition, emotional ownership, or are those tied together?
So that's just a process of evolving from tier 2 to tier 3.
Okay.
So neither of those are a tier. So a
Okay.
couple of other key points, a majority, 70, 80, potentially more of the population live in tier 1. And a big part of tier 1 is that you think that it's normal that you feel that way. You think that it's normal that you just have anxiety sometimes. You think it's normal that you just feel dissatisfied, that you're comparing yourself to other people, that you always feel like no matter how much money you have, whether it's a little or a lot, it's just never enough, and that you're striving for the next achievement. And even when you get that achievement, then just the bar moves farther, and maybe you feel good for a couple of days, but then you don't feel good anymore, and you're just like, oh, I guess I needed to make more money, or I needed to get a better car in order to feel okay. And it's a never ending process of just chronic dissatisfaction. So a big part, that's a huge element of tier 1, is that people believe that it's normal that life works that way, and they do not seek out for solutions when they feel like it's normal. So,
Mm-hmm.
moving from tier 2 to tier 3 is called what we call encoded activation. It is an incredibly powerful place for any human to live. And when you shift from tier 2 to tier 3, it literally feels like you have rocket boosters on you. Like, I've watched 50 people go through it in the past couple of months from that transition, and their life completely changes. And nothing necessarily materially is changing outside of them. What is changing is how they relate to everything in their life, how they show up in their relationships, how they relate to challenges, how they feel on a day-to-day basis, how they show up, the level of trust that they have for themselves, things like that. So, in tier 3, called encoded activation, there are a couple of major elements that happen during this phase. Um, the first one is a process of learning and deciding that you're going to trust yourself more than anybody else. That you don't need to call someone in order to validate your decision. That you don't need to hire a coach to know what's right for you. That is a major part of the process of evolving through tier 3. Another major part is that it's not that you intellectually understand it, you see it happening in your life all the time, that your internal state influences everything you experience outside of you. This is not mystical, this is not spiritual. This is real, that we do not see the world the way it is. We see the world the way we are. It is scientifically proven that our mind filters and edits our experience based on the things that we already believe to confirm what we already believe about how the world works. So, what when you consciously realize that, and then when you feel like there's never enough money, or that clients are going to leave and you're not doing enough for them, that you end up seeing a lot more of that in your life. When you believe, if I let go, everything's going to fall apart, I need to hold this all together, that you attract fires and problems to solve that keeps you stuck in this cycle. When you believe I can empower others, and I can trust others in order to grow and thrive, and everything's going to be great when I empower others, then you will find plenty of opportunities and plenty of evidence that when you empower others, your mission accelerates, that your business grows faster, that things operate more smoothly, and you begin to see that happening in your life. If you have internal chaos, it will be reflected to you outside of you. And if you feel calm and clear, you will find a lot more clarity within your life. And so those elements are a huge part of the process in tier 3, to not just read a book about it and understand it, but to see it occurring in your life on a day-to-day basis.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. That's a powerful, powerful place to be. Can you give listeners, like, I think everyone will kind of agree with what you're breaking down. Can you give people an exercise? You talk about this like frequency training. Can you tease like one or two of those that um, someone can implement in their own life?
For sure. So, when I'll back up and explain the process here.
Yeah.
Whenever somebody is making a transformation in their life, they go through a 5-step predictable process. However, because most people do not realize that there is a 5-step process, and they're not aware of it, that they take a bunch of detours and wrong turns, and they end up back at the beginning. For instance, something as simple as going from uh, not working out, not having it in your schedule, believing you don't have enough time for it, believing that it's going to be hard and draining, and that you're not going to be able to do it, to becoming someone that just goes to the gym every day. They love it. They get energized by it. It's part of who they are. That transition happens in a predictable 5-stage process, and everything in your life would follow the same process when you make a transformation. Step 1 is awareness. Being aware that maybe, and it doesn't have to be some big recognition. Maybe you're at a pool party and you're embarrassed to take your shirt off. Maybe you look in the mirror and you say, wow, like I don't look the way that I did a year ago. Maybe you're just walking up the stairs and you're like breathing heavy because it's hard to get up the stairs because of the shape that you're in. And you recognize it and say, I'm not going to live like this anymore. I recognize that I am out of shape. I know what the solution is, and I'm going to make a change. Usually it comes with an insight too. That insight might be, I don't have enough time to work out because I'm working all the time or something like that. Step two, the most important step that almost everybody skips is belief and identity upgrades, which means shifting from I don't have enough time to work out to I make time for the things that are important to me. Shifting from working out is going to be hard and draining to working out gives me energy to do all the rest of the things that I want to do in my life. Shifting from I'm not a healthy person to I can do anything that I set my mind to. I can do this. I can make time for this. Shifting from um, I'm out of shape and my body's breaking down to my body's giving me a signal that I need to make a change, right? So shifting these level of beliefs, most people skip it and they try to start at step three, which is interruption. Interruption is when you interrupt an old pattern and you choose a different thing. In this example about the gym, it would be, you go drive your kids to school every day and you pass the gym and you need to get the gym membership, but you just feel like you never have time. And then one day you interrupt it and you say, I'm going to get the gym membership today. And you go in there, even though it's outside and it feels unfamiliar, and you get it. So they try to start there. Then step four is integration, which means transitioning it from a one-time thing that you did or a couple times a week to consistently having that be reinforced in who you are. Going to the gym 3 times a week, then all of a sudden you love it, you get more healthy. Now you're going 4 or 5 times a week, and it just starts to become who you are. Then step 5 is embodiment, meaning that you don't need to think about it. It's just who you are. It has become a more preferred situation. Instead of going home and sitting on the couch or working an extra hour, you prefer to go to the gym, that you get more energy from it, that you feel it. It's just who you are. You don't need to think about it anymore, whether it's rainy or sunny or cold or hot. It doesn't matter. You're going to go to the gym because it's who you are. Now, when most people make a transformation, they are trained to focus on doing something differently. So they start at step 3. And when they do not shift their underlying beliefs about how the world works and who they are, then the thing that they're doing is misaligned with their identity and beliefs. It feels draining. It feels hard. That is known as willpower. And when people follow that process, the willpower runs out because the thing that they're doing, the behavior, is not aligned with their emotions, identity, and beliefs. And so that is why willpower generally fails. That is why a majority of New Year's resolutions are unsuccessful, because people are not taking that conscious step first to shift who they are, who they believe they are, and how the world works. So with the awareness of how that process works, what you can do is become aware of where you want to go and what that identity would be, and also to believe that your identity is fluid, that you can be whoever you want to be. 5 years ago, people told me that I'm just not an empathetic person, and many times I believed them. And then I started to shift my belief about who I am. And now many people tell me that I'm one of the most empathetic people they've ever met. You are not static. That's not who you are. It's just how you've been showing up before. So having that belief that I can do this, I can shift, is super important. So you decide, I'm going to go from being a person that doesn't make time for the gym, that feels embarrassed to take my shirt off at a pool party, and I'm going to shift to being a healthy person that prioritizes fitness and gets energy from it. And the process is to imprint. The process we call imprinting is a repetitive process, on a daily practice of imprinting that identity, those beliefs and worldviews, those results into your life. The encoded system streamlines this entire process by basically pulling out a lot of things, because many people do not have the awareness of their limiting beliefs naturally. And so our system is able to, through a process, be able to identify those and then to be able to present them with a training plan.
Very
Other
cool.
things that people can do straight away that would benefit almost everyone listening to this podcast is to question your definitions and beliefs about how the world works. So if you could go to LinkedIn, right? Here's a practical example. Go to LinkedIn, read the first 10 posts that you see, and then question, is what this person is telling me a fact or a belief? To be clear, a fact is something that every single person would agree to. Everybody. The sky is blue, the grass is green, the tide went out, right? A fact that everybody objectively would agree to. A belief is something that someone believes that often gets confused with a fact. For example, you need to suffer to be successful. Perpetuated on LinkedIn all the time. If you're not working hard, if it's not hard, if you're not grinding, then it must not be valuable. That is not a fact. That is not true. It is reinforced by influencers and people like that, but it is not true. A possibility to consider is that when things feel easy and when things are happening in that way, that is a sign that you've mastered something. It's a sign that you're on the right track. When you feel joy and you feel happy and energized by something you're doing, that is a sign that you're on the right track. Totally different belief system. Another one would be that serious entrepreneurs work 9-9-6. If you're not working 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. 6 days a week, then your company's not going to grow and you must not be serious. That is not a fact. That is a belief perpetuated by VCs because they benefit when their people that they invest in overwork to a level of 2 times so that they get 2 times the hours worked per week per employee. And they still somehow burn a ton of money every year, even though everyone's working twice as much as they should. And so you could go through and you'll find them all over the place on social media platforms, beliefs that are often confused as facts because of how often they're reinforced. And then you
I
can
like that
choose
exercise. I think
you can
it's all
choose to
beliefs.
rewrite all. You can choose to rewrite all of them.
Yeah.
I published an episode that has, I think I mentioned 25 of the most negatively impactful invisible contracts. That's on the We Are Encoded podcast. And you could go through and you could decide, once you're aware of it, you can decide, do I want to agree to my life working this way? So an exercise that you could do is you can identify one. For instance, alcohol is for celebrations. It brings people closer together, and it's what cool people do. And you could take it and you could imagine that someone printed out a paper contract to you. And when you look at it, they're saying you can sign on the dotted line here if you agree that this is how the world is going to work for you. And you can look at it and you can decide, would I sign this contract or not? That I have to grind and suffer in order to be successful. Your call. It doesn't have to be that way. But many people unconsciously agree to these rules.
Yeah. One of the big ones I had, and so many people have, was just, I'm too busy. There's never enough time. If I had more time, everything would be okay. And then that was coupled with, I also lied to myself for probably 15 years that this busy time was just one intense period. And that it was just, I just got to get through this one intense period. And then even intenser period would start. And then even an intenser period, like the amount of times I told my mom, who would be like, "Hey, I'm worried about you. Like, haven't heard from you. You're working a lot." I would say almost every conversation, "Oh, it's just an intense period. It's just an intense period. It's about to be better, and I'll be a better son, and I'll be a better partner, and all this stuff." And I guess So if you're stuck, maybe you've reached that level of awareness. Maybe people are like, hey, I actually am too busy. I'm always too busy. They're listening. That's like, that's a thing. But they're like, maybe that's just a belief. This imprinting exercise. How could I do that? Let's say you're teaching me. I'm like, man, I've got this thing. I don't know if it's real. I feel like it's not real. Um, what am I doing? Am I just repeating to myself the opposite? Am I journaling like what it feels like to have an abundance of time? Walk me through a little bit how someone can start imprinting the opposite behavior or belief, sorry.
So we use a proprietary process at Encoded that we call frequency chains. And what happens is it works in a cascade. So it starts with your identity, which is who you believe you are. Then based on that, it moves into beliefs, how you believe the world works and the definitions that you hold. Then your emotions, which emotions are simply a diagnostic readout of your identity and beliefs. That's all it is. Emotions are just an indicator. It's like the warning light on your car, right? So if you're feeling burnt out and stressed in your job, then it is an indicator that something around your identity and beliefs is not aligned with who you want to be. Instead of pushing through it and fighting it and justifying it and accepting it, understanding it, inviting it, looking deeper into it can be incredibly powerful for people. Next, we have intentions, which most people are not aware of their true intentions. However, intentions are the why underneath your actions. It picks the direction that you're going to go, right? So two people can do the same thing with entirely different sets of intentions. One entrepreneur can launch a product in order to prove to others that they're successful. Another entrepreneur can launch a product because the product needs to be there and people are going to benefit from it. It is the exact same action, launching a product from two entirely different states of intention. Most people are not aware of their true intentions and they tell themselves a story about how they're trying to help people when underneath it, they're actually trying to extract energy, money, attention, or validation from others. Next, we actually have behaviors, right? So this is the fifth link of a chain. The first four are totally invisible and the most powerful by far. And then you actually get to your behavior, which was, say, launching the product. Then from that behavior, then you get specific results from it. And the results simply mirror all the different stuff that happens at the beginning of the chain based on who you believe you are, how the world works, the emotions you feel, and your intentions. So what we do is we start at the top of the chain. We start on who we believe we are, then how we believe the world works. When those two elements are truly believed, which I don't want to impose limiting beliefs on others, but generally this process takes somewhere between 30 and 90 days. Can it happen faster for some people? Can it happen slower? Sure, but I'm just trying to give a general range for people to truly believe that about yourself and how the world works. Then you feel different emotions automatically. When you go to the gym, when you feel different things, then you feel like energized. You feel like this is who I am. You feel joyful of working out instead of drained and, oh, this is hard and I hate going to the gym or something like that. Your intentions shift when you shift your beliefs and identity. Those two emotions and intentions will happen semi-automatically. Then from there, you will take different behaviors slowly and consciously. So there's a process of actually taking intentional action that aligns with this new worldview and new beliefs about who you are to reinforce that level of belief, which we call anchoring. And then through that process, as you continue to reinforce it and stabilize, you will get new results from a different level of identity and a set of new behavior patterns that are reinforced. So the process is simple. Every morning we wake up and we imprint these new frequencies around these different frequency chains, starting with who we believe we are, then how the world works, then the results that we want to have happen in our life. And then we identify from those what are actions that are aligned to that we could do. And inevitably, these actions will feel unfamiliar. If they were familiar, then you'd already be doing them. So these are not the things that show up on your to-do list. They're not on your schedule. You might feel like you don't have any time for them. However, in order to get to where you want to go, you must consciously connect. If this is who I am and this is what I believe and this is what I want to have happen in my life, then what would I do today? And to begin to connect that awareness and to be aware the actions that I would take are very different than the things I'm doing today. And so that process is repeated every day. We call it frequency training. There are many other elements of training, just like there's yoga and weight training and cardio and Pilates. There's a lot of different versions of frequency training, but that is one daily routine that people can do. Um, and so that is one example of how it works. Now, we call it training for a reason. That it is almost exactly the same as fitness. That you can't read a book about fitness and get more fit. That you can't listen to this podcast and get more fit. That you actually, the way that you improve is by doing the training. And the way that you improve is through consistent repetition of the training. And so that is our view about how this works. I've been doing this process and continuing to evolve it for myself for 4.5 or 5 years. And this is what we're offering and what we're bringing to market at Encoded to streamline this process so that people can follow it.
I love it, man. I want to commend you on using that big brain of yours on something that the world needs. I think I know so many fantastic entrepreneurs who are wicked smart, and they unfortunately get sucked into solving problems that just make the most money or it's easiest to raise money. And if we could repurpose some of those minds into solving some of the world's really big problems and helping people break through their limiting beliefs and live an intentional, beautiful life that is measured by joy, not their bank account, is a really cool mission, man. And when you talk, it's so clear the learned experience you have and the thoughtfulness and in the approach. Um, and I wish we could get encoded in like elementary schools. How cool would it be to be able to
Dude,
teach
I
young
I
kids this stuff?
Encoded for kids will be a thing. If you we'll go on a tangent for a second, then we'll come back. But if you evaluate with first principles and you look clearly at the education system, the education system
Mhm.
is built on one core principle, which is stuff information in your brain, force you to memorize it, and then apply that information in order to make money or be productive. Now, I'm pretty sure everyone on this podcast that's listening to this podcast has heard there's this thing called artificial intelligence that came out 2 or 3 years ago. And the idea that a human is valued based on the information that's stored in their brain with this new technological shift is totally ludicrous, and it makes the entire education system entirely irrelevant, obsolete. Now, most people can't admit it to themselves that the education system is collapsing. I would argue it's already collapsed. And the future of education will not be about memorizing or learning information. It will be about training yourself, exploring concepts, trusting yourself, tuning into your intuition, believing the things that you want about the world, and it will be an amazing thing for children. Now, the 100 people that have gone through this process before, many of them are parents. And within 1 or 2 weeks of doing it, this process, they feel internal shifts. Other people reflect back that they notice different things about them and they're starting to take different actions and they feel differently. And they almost immediately have a better parenting relationship with their children. They are more present, they spend more time with them, and they consciously choose to educate and raise their children in a different way once they see these principles work in their life. And so that is a
Mhm.
clear indicator to me that it should be. I wonder why, when I was taking a ninth grade history lesson, why someone wasn't teaching me this stuff. Like, this is the stuff that
Mhm.
matters. Um,
Mhm.
and so, little tangent there, but I do see that evolving in our mission.
Yeah, I love it. No, it's super in line with everything I've been thinking about, man. The West does not have a framework for we can. I'll call it being because that's the language I'm kind of used to right
Hmm.
now, and this can be a framework for being that we need to teach kids. We need to teach adults, anyone who's starting to ask questions about and like the good thing I think um, is we're about to see such historic change in the world that it's going to be really hard not to start questioning everything. And so there's almost going to be this, the outer world sort of going to force us, I think, inward because people, as they're operating now, are not going to be able to handle the amount of changes that they're going to have to weather over the next decade. So it'll be a forcing function to figure out their frequency, I think. I hope.
I I believe that we're entering into a massive shift in society. That is actually going to be, there's all the doom things about it, but I think it's actually going to be amazing for a lot of people. And the way that I look at it is that before the internet, that most people worked in a factory, and it was called the industrial era. And then the internet came along, and many people chose to start making money using their brain instead of using their hands. Now, the manufacturing facilities in the industrial era still exist. That is one world that you could choose to live in, but many people chose to begin to use the internet, and they experienced a very different, they were living in the same world, experiencing it very differently when they started to use it. It connected people together. It influenced elections. It allowed people to build a Shopify store and create a business or start a freelancing. And it changed so many amazing things about the world. Now, a similar technological shift, potentially even more dramatic, is occurring right now. And what will happen is that the same thing, that people will decide to stay in the existing set of reality, which is I make money with my brain. I go to an office 9 to 5. Over time, less jobs in those arenas will exist, and that's the same thing that happened. And other people will choose to see what's happening and say, "Oh, just like when they started using the internet early, they'll start doing this, which is not, I'm going to be better at using AI. What it is the way that I'm valued and the way I contribute has shifted from what I use in my brain to how I show up, that my value is in how calm and clear and easy I make things for everybody else. That
Mhm.
having a level of intuition and knowing what is right for me is really powerful when there's 100 different pieces of fake content created by AI that all feel very compelling, that are driving you in the wrong direction, that you need to know what is right for you. You need to trust yourself. You need to be able to tune in. You need to be able to connect with others, that those elements are actually what are the most valuable things moving forward. And so I invite people to consider that possibility for themselves. I'm not trying to convince anyone of anything. You can believe and do whatever you want. But I do see very clearly that that shift is occurring, and it can be an opportunity for people. I think it's a wonderful opportunity for anybody to at least consider and explore for themselves. It fundamentally changes how you experience every single moment of your life, how you feel, the things that you think about, how you make decisions, the quality of your relationships, the quality of your life, how you feel about how your freedom and your purpose and your fulfillment and your impact. It can be super powerful.
Mhm. A dear friend of mine puts it in a way that I really like. It's the greatest gift you can give someone is your nervous system. And I really like that framing because that feels like something you can control and you can. Cool. Well,
Yeah,
Chris,
well, think about it,
this has
right?
been
Like
awesome, man.
people can, just think about it for a second because
Yeah.
everyone can relate to this, right? You walk into a meeting and you immediately feel tense. You immediately feel urgent. You immediately feel like something is off because all the people in the room are dysregulated, urgent, and quickly you calibrate to the state of the people around you. Conversely, you can show up and someone can be calm, they can be clear, they can be steady, and you can shift into and you start to shift into that state and you feel more calm, you feel more clear about yourself. Maybe afterwards you have the best idea of your life and you don't know why, but that is why that your nervous system calibrated to theirs. And with that level of calibration, that when your nervous system is calm, you feel more clear and you have better ideas. And so I fundamentally agree with that. Yeah, man.
I love it. Chris, thank you for running it back. This was as incredible of a conversation as I knew it would be. I am watching what you're doing at Encoded very, very closely. And I urge every one of our listeners, check this stuff out wherever you're at in your life. A good place to start is Chris's podcast, where he shares a lot of this stuff. But this kind of work you're doing, man, this is what the world needs. I'm grateful to know you, grateful to have you as a friend, and just keep going, man. It's want to see Encoded be the new education system for the West.
We're working on it, man, and everything's happening right on time. We only got into the 3 tiers, so anyone that's interested in the rest, the first episode, it's tagged "Must Listen" episode of the We Are Encoded podcast, covers all 6 tiers in detail, and then there's a deep dive, a specific episode for each tier that goes into a lot more detail on the podcast as well. And so, if you have any interest in exploring that further, feel free to do that on Apple, Spotify, or any other podcast platform.
Beautiful.
Thank you, bro. Appreciate it. Appreciate your perseverance for making this happen. I know you're in some random room in India, probably late at night. So it's been great to spend some time with you. I appreciate it, and look forward to catching up again soon on stuff like this.
Likewise, brother. I think there's a marching band going down the road now. I don't know what's going on. It's crazy. But listeners, thank you so much for rocking with us. We'll see you next week.